Hello and welcome. You are now looking at Zapier.com, and Zapier allows you to integrate cloud-based services that you are already using that typically don't have a built-in integration. The company states that it connects over 3,000 applications, which will allow you to automate processes instead of manually having to create them when you regularly use specific applications. The company allows for workflows so that if you need to use more than one application in one integration, you can do it. The company has a basic free trial that will allow you to test the connections that you are making. And then when you can determine that you're going to use Zapier on a regular basis, you can pay monthly for a specific number of connections as well as direct integrations. The company has its own search engine so that you can search it to determine if you're going to work with a specific application. And the company does have its own form of education, which includes a blog, specific Zapier experts, a help center, and a community portal. If you want to browse Zapier to determine how it can be used, you can use the Explore Zapier by job role. However, one of the easiest ways to use Zapier is to type in the two cloud-based services that you want to integrate. And once you type them into your favorite search engine, what you can also type in is the word Zapier, then integration, and then you will search for the results. In some cases, you will see an integration that is available to you in the search engine that you can then go and look to within the Zapier website. Now, although this will not determine whether your specific use case will be available using Zapier, it is an indication that the two applications that you're working with can be connected using the cloud-based service. So what you can do at this point is you can sign up for the free trial within Zapier, and we will do that in the next video. Welcome back. We are going to look at the pricing alternatives. We're going to do that by clicking on this link that says pricing. And as of the recording of this video, you're going to determine which level at which you want to start. It's possible that you just may want to start with the free plan. However, the trial that you're going to be on can be determined by where you start. Now, when you look at paid plans, you're going to want to be aware that it is tiered based on your activity. So for example, if we were to move this particular plan up to a specific number of tasks, you'll see that the cost will be higher. And the same will be true for any specific plan that you are going to be using. You're also going to see that there are going to be a specific number of premium applications that you can use under specific plans. And premium applications are going to be those that are indicated in the Zapier system and that can only be used with this designation. For example, the GoToWebinar integration you'll see is designated as being a premium application. So if your trial ends and you choose an actual plan, you'll need to be aware of what the plan does and how you're going to be using Zapier over time. Now, it's important to note that this is the plan as of the recording of this video. These plans do change, the designations do change, and the pricing does change. Welcome back. Now, once you've signed up for a plan, it's a good idea to go inside of your profile and then to look at your email notifications. And you'll want to get daily notifications because this will tell you exactly what's happening inside of your Zapier account. For example, you'll get a daily summary of how many tasks you've used for a specific day, as well as how many specific Zaps you are using and how many Zapier considers to be active inside of your account. This will keep you abreast of what you need to do when you're using Zapier integrations at the limits of your account. You'll also want to get alerts on any specific failed actions inside of Zapier. This is where you can make changes to a specific Zap if it's not working by clicking directly on editing a specific Zap to determine your existing steps. And of course, all other emails are going to be optional in terms of what it is that you are doing. You're also going to see an Advanced tab. You can enable two-factor authentication. You can also authorize specific applications to work with your Zapier account. Now, this is not an integration. What you're looking at here is you're allowing certain applications in order to have access to your Zapier history. You can determine and leave enabled the SSL check, and this will keep you from integrating with applications or your site when an SSL is out of line. You can choose to sign in with your Google account, or you can continue to use your email in order to access Zapier. You do have control over your data, which you can export, and you can delete inside of the Zapier settings. You can look inside of your billing and plan area to determine what you're using in Zapier and what it will cost you in order to upgrade. As stated in an earlier video, everything depends on when you start your plan as to what your pricing will be when you want to upgrade and if you keep your plan current. You can add team members to your Zapier account. This does require an additional element to the plan, and this is going to cost more for you to add individuals. Welcome back. Now when you go to your Zapier dashboard, you will see recommended workflows in the center. If you go to the left side menu and you click on Zaps, you will then see any Zaps that you have currently in operation. You will see all of the Zaps that you currently have turned on. You will also see all of the Zaps that you have currently turned off. Only the Zaps that are turned on count towards your plan, which you can monitor on the left side menu at the very bottom. If you need to transfer a large amount of information for a large amount of individuals, you can use a transfer instead of a Zap. We will cover this specific process in another video, but the transfer section will help you to keep track of the results that you're getting with any transfers that you have made. You will then be able to see all of the applications that you currently have connected to Zapier. Now this is not the universe of applications that are available. These are the applications that you have connected to your account. If you go to this link, you'll be able to see a Zap history. You'll then be able to see all of the Zaps that you have used and how they have been used in order to connect applications that you have. You can sort for specific dates. You can sort for specific Zaps. You can sort for specific applications. And if you're working with a team, you can sort for specific folders. And the Explore tab will take you back to one of the home or advertising pages. And as stated before, you can monitor your plan in this area. You can change the plan by clicking on Manage Plan if you don't feel as if you have enough capacity to do with Zapier what you need to do. Welcome back. Now one of the first things that you can do to begin working with Zapier is to connect applications that you are already using. And you can do that by going to the My Apps area. And then what you can do is to click Add Connection. That's going to bring you to a search area, and you're going to be able to search among all of the apps that are going to be available on Zapier in order for you to connect to the site. Now for the sake of this example, we are going to type in Shopify. And you'll notice that Shopify is one of the applications that you can connect to Zapier. So we're going to click Shopify. That's going to bring us to a specific page. Now when you are connecting a Zapier application, all of the requirements are going to be different depending on the application. Now for Shopify, there are specific instructions that we need to follow in order to connect our Shopify account. And for this specific instance, we need to go inside of our Shopify account to get our username and place it here inside of the Zapier dialog. Now in this case, we don't need to log all the way into our Shopify account. We can simply grab the URL and then we can use it in order to place inside of Zapier. So we're now going to place the information inside of the area. We're then going to click Yes, Continue. And you'll notice now that our Shopify connection has been made. We can go in and rename our Shopify connection so that we'll know exactly what it is that we have done. We'll go to the ellipsis. We'll then go and click Edit Connection Name. We'll then write in our new connection name. We'll then click OK. Our Shopify connection has now been made. We can make more than one connection at any time. Now in order to add another application, we'll click on My Apps. We can then either click Add Connection or Search Apps. We're now going to click connect to MailChimp. Now in this case, you'll notice that the process is different. What we need to do is to use this dialog in order to log into our MailChimp account in order to connect to Zapier. So we are going to place in our login and password and click Login, and then allow Zapier to talk to our MailChimp account. Now for this process, MailChimp will send a verification code to our mobile device. You will then allow Zapier to interact with your MailChimp account. You can then rename your connection. And you now have two applications ready to integrate inside of Zapier. What you can then do is to connect other applications that you are already using to your account. Welcome back. Now once you have applications connected to Zapier, you can start working with either zaps or transfers. If you want to create a specific zap or integration, you can click on this Zap area. What you're going to then do is to click the link that says Create a Zap. Now the first part of creating a zap is going to be the trigger. This is going to be the event that sets everything in motion for your two applications to talk. So this first step is going to be the cause of the integration. So for example, assuming that we are going to use the app MailChimp, since we already have it connected, we're then going to have a trigger event or the cause. And so in this case, we can choose from a range of trigger events, and you'll see them in this drop down area. A new audience or list is created. A new subscriber is created. In other words, you're going to see events that are specific to the application. So we can make the cause a new unsubscriber. We're going to do then inside of Zapier is then click Continue. And what Zapier does is it allows us to choose from our MailChimp accounts. Now you can connect multiple MailChimp accounts to your Zapier account. Now we just added a specific MailChimp account to our Zapier account. So we're going to choose that account. We're then going to click Continue. What we're now going to do is we're going to set up a trigger. And so we're going to choose a specific parameter from within our MailChimp account where we want the cause to take place. Because Zapier talks to our MailChimp account, we'll be able to see specific parameters in that MailChimp account. So what we're now going to do is we're going to select one of the audiences from within our MailChimp account that was created before we began working with Zapier. We're then going to click Continue. We're then going to test the trigger. We are then going to click Continue. Now the next part of the connection is the action connection, and we will cover that in the next video. Welcome back. Now once you've created the trigger or the cause of the integration, Zapier will then assume that you want to create an action. Now there are some alternatives for you at this point. You can do a direct integration with another app, and this would be an app event. What you can also do at this point is you can choose a specific path. You can also choose to filter the information in a specific way. You can also choose to reformat the information as it comes from the cause or the trigger. And you can also start a delay process as it comes from the trigger. Now for the sake of this video, we are going to use an app event. And we're going to do a direct integration. And we're going to choose an email service provider called GetResponse. Now it's at this point that we want to choose the effect or the action event. And we'll have a range of events that we can choose based on the inside of GetResponse. So we'll pull the drop-down menu, and you'll notice that GetResponse calls its subscribers contacts. And so that's why you'll see that language here in this area. So we have a range of things that we can do. We can remove a contact, update a contact, create a newsletter, create a contact, or create and update a contact. Now remember, this is going to be the effect of the cause, which is a new subscriber in the MailChimp email service provider. So when there's an unsubscriber in MailChimp, what we want to do is we want to cause something to happen inside of GetResponse. And so let's assume that what we want to do is we want to then remove a contact from within our GetResponse account. We're then going to click Continue. Notice at this point, we're going to choose to connect a GetResponse account, or we're going to need to connect another GetResponse account. Now, if we choose this drop-down menu, you'll notice that there are already GetResponse accounts connected. We can use one of those accounts, or we can connect a new GetResponse account. Now, for the sake of this video, we're going to continue with the GetResponse account that we have, and we're going to click Continue. In this case, there is no specific action, so what we want to do is we want to use a custom integration, and we're going to choose the specific email from our MailChimp account. And so what this does is this means then that Zapier will look for that specific email address in our GetResponse account when this process is set in motion. We're then going to click Continue. Now, it's at this point that you want to test and continue your action. Now, for the sake of this video, we are not going to test this action. We're going to skip the test. But you would typically test and review to determine if there are any problems with the particular action that you are taking. Once you've tested your action, you can then turn on your Zap, and then when you have a new subscriber in MailChimp, you will also have that contact removed. So when a person is unsubscribed in one email service provider, they're going to be unsubscribed in another email service provider that are both directly integrated. Welcome back. You can have more than one additional step inside of your Zap. So for example, you'll see that we have set one integration between two email service providers. That's based on one new unsubscriber that happens in one specific email service provider. We can then add on another application. We can click the plus button. In this case, we're going to go back to the setup, and we're going to add in another action. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to give the person that just unsubscribed a free course. So we're going to add in a course inside of the online course platform Teachable. What we're going to do is we're going to select an action event, and we're going to enroll a new user in a specific course. We're then going to click Continue. Now in this case, we're going to connect a new Teachable account. And to connect that Teachable account, we're going to need to have the email and the password to that account and the subdomain. Once we have the information in, we're then going to click Yes, Continue. Our account is now connected. We can now click Continue. And Zapier is now going to look inside of our Teachable account, and we're going to select a specific course. And our course is available. We are going to select it. We are then going to set up or map the user's email. And in this case, we can select the email that comes from the MailChimp account, which is typically what we want to do since that would be the starting point. So we're going to select that email address that is unsubscribed in the first part of the trigger or the cause. And what you'll notice here is that we don't have a required field here. So you don't have to write in a name. However, we can go ahead with a name if we have that information available from the initial cause. And we can get this from the first step or the second step. It is our choice. Once we do that, we can then click Continue. Now it's at this point that we can test our connection by sending the individual to the course. And we're going to skip this part of the test for the sake of this video. And we now have the choice of adding in another step by clicking this button, or we can turn our Zap on to start the process. Welcome back. Now, depending on how an application connects to Zapier, you may have different choices that you're going to need to take. For example, if you were to use the cloud-based online course platform Teachable, and you wanted to start with Teachable as the cause, and assuming that you have a new user in your Teachable account, you would then go and look for the trigger event or the cause. And what you'll notice is that a user becoming part of a specific course isn't necessarily going to be a choice that you can use in order to make a direct integration. For example, we want to trigger an action when there is a new enrollment. And then we would click the Continue button. We would select the Teachable account, and we would then test the trigger. But because the trigger is not course specific, and we want the action to be based on a course specific cause, we would then need to use the filter command inside of Zapier. And so in this case, we would use the filter in a specific way. So we would use the filter by Zapier and continue. And that's going to bring us to the filter parameters. we can do a continuation for a number of parameters inside of Teachable. We can select the parameter that we want to filter by. In this case, we're saying we want the filter to be based on a specific course ID. We can then determine how specific we want it to be. We'll select a parameter in order to do that. We'll then write in the parameter from our platform. In this case, we are going to give it a specific course ID. And what we're telling Zapier is that if there's a new enrollment, and these course parameters about that new enrollment are true based on the information that's being sent over from Teachable, we want the Zap to continue to the next step. In this case, that next step is to create a subscriber within an email service provider. So if you come to the point and there isn't enough information being given in the initial trigger or cause, you need to go back one step, add in a filter action in order to get the more specific information. Welcome back. Now, when you create an integration, it's assumed that it's going to happen immediately. However, you may not want the last action to happen immediately. You might want there to be a delay before the last action takes place. And so if that's the case, you're going to add in another Zapier action. You're going to add in the action someplace between the first and last step. You're going to add in the action, and this time you're going to choose a Zapier delay. And you will see the delay happen. You can then choose a specific action event. The action delay for a specific period of time. You can have the action delay until something else happens. You can have it delay after a time in the queue. So we're going to choose delay for, knowing that we can choose the other two for specific instances. We're then going to click continue. We're then going to write in the literal time that we want the delay to take place. Now, the time delay is going to be based on the unit you choose. So we're going to choose the days unit, and we're going to delay the action for 1 calendar day. Now we can choose different parameters. We can choose minutes, we can choose days, we can choose weeks, and those are all the choices that we can make. Once we do that, we're then going to click continue. Now basically what we're saying is that we don't want the following step to continue until 1 day has passed. Now we can decide to change our mind about this step. We can go to the ellipsis, click delete step, and our Zap is in its original state. Welcome back. Now there will be times within Zapier that you'll need to transfer information in bulk. And when you do that, you're going to use transfers. What you're going to do is first to create a transfer. Now as of the recording of this video, there are only 24 apps that you can use to make the transfer from. And you will be able to scroll through the list. Now one of the things that you'll see here is that you can use Google Sheets. You can also use Microsoft Excel, and this is where you can have bulk information in categorized areas. You'll also notice that you can use Stripe and you can use Zoom. At some point there may be more applications that you can use. What we're going to do is we're going to use a spreadsheet or CSV form within Microsoft Excel. What you're then going to do is you're going to choose the source data. And the choice that we have is to use a specific row within Microsoft Excel. What we're now going to do is we're going to choose the destination application. In this case, we're going to choose Go to Webinar. We're going to choose a destination action. And in this case, we are going to create a specific registrant based on information we have within Microsoft Excel. So if you have a number of contacts and you have them individually arranged on different rows, you can use them to create a registrant on a GoToWebinar session. We're going to click Create Registrant. We're then going to click Next. Once you have connected your data source to Zapier, you'll then be able to allow Zapier to look inside of that data source in order to find specific parameters that you're going to send to the new application. So we're going to connect each and every one of the required dialogues within our data source. Once we find the specific document, we can then look within that document to find a specific parameter. But what we have now done is we have connected our data source to the transfer portal inside of Zapier. What we can now do is to go next. And what we can now do is we can connect to our GoToWebinar account. Since we have connected GoToWebinar to our Zapier account, what we can now do is look for a specific webinar. And what you'll then do is you will map out each portion in the row that you are going to be looking for in order to make the transfer to GoToWebinar. And what you're going to do is you're going to map out each portion of the data transfer. We're then going to click Next. Once you have your fields mapped, you're then going to click Looks Good. What you'll then be able to do is to select the data that you want to transfer. You'll then click Next. And what you can then do is you can send the data all at one time to a specific location using the transfer portal. Welcome back. Now, in some cases, you may want to cause an integration that does not rely on any particular application. And when that happens, you may want to use a Zapier action or trigger. And to do that, you will need a Zapier application. For example, if we were to click on this action button and you were to place your cursor inside of the app event dialog, and you start by typing in Zapier, what you're going to see is you're going to see several triggers and actions that you can use that aren't necessarily related to a specific app that you have connected. For example, there's the filter application, there's the Webhooks application, there is the formatter application, and you'll see all of the applications that are available. Now, because we are looking at the action portal, you're going to notice that some of the Zapier applications are not available. That's because they're only available if you're going to use them as a specific trigger. So while some of the applications can be used as an action or a trigger, there are going to be some applications that are going to be strictly for triggers and strictly for actions. Now, you can explore each one of these applications on their own to determine if they are fitting a particular integration you are trying. And the way that you're going to examine what it does is you will place an action or a trigger and you will open up the Zapier application. And when you do that, what you're going to do is choose an action event. And you'll then be able to determine if what you're using here will fit the Zap or integration that you are creating. And it's a good idea to go through each one within the scenario that you are using them, because it's the only way to determine if it will be usable within your integration. Welcome back. Now, there may be cases where there may be a direct integration, but it doesn't do exactly what you want it to do. And if that's the case, you may want to explore whether or not there's going to be a webhook available. We are now inside of the WarriorPlus affiliate platform. And we're here inside of the product creation area because we're going to look to create an integration between WarriorPlus and another platform. And in this case, the integration may not be available among those that WarriorPlus connects with. And there also may be no direct membership software integration. However, you can still integrate using a custom integration. So for example, you'll notice here that within WarriorPlus, there is a way that you can send sale payment notification information to another application using a webhook. And you can use Zapier to collect the information from this platform and carry it to another application. And to do that, you're going to look inside of one of the premium applications and use the webhook application within Zapier. You're then going to look to a specific trigger event. Now, you may need to check with the developer or the specific application so that you'll know whether you use a retrieve poll, a catch hook, or a raw hook. In most cases, you will likely use a catch hook. So what we're going to do is we're then going to click Continue. And what Zapier then gives you is a webhook URL. You can then copy that webhook URL. Now, in the case of WarriorPlus, you're going to place that webhook inside of this notification URL. And what this will do is this will catch the information from a particular sale and will place it on the hook within Zapier so that you can deliver it to another application. What you will then do is click Continue. What's important to note is that when you test the trigger, if you are setting the Zap up for the first time, it's unlikely that you'll have any information in which the trigger will pass. And so what you may need to do is to create sample information or test information at the trigger application. Now, for the sake of this video, we are going to skip the test, and Zapier will allow us to come back to the trigger test. What we're now going to do is choose our action. And what we're going to do is to enroll a user in a specific course inside of our course platform. We're then going to select our Teachable account. We're going to send the individual to a specific course. What we typically want is to have an email to connect to or map, a name, and we typically don't need a password. However, if we were to place our cursor in the dialog, you'll notice that we skipped the action, so there's no data available at this time. So we do need to make the connection in order to get our sample information so that it can be mapped properly inside of the new Zap. This is one way for you to use a webhook within Zapier to connect to an application that typically will not have an integration that will fit. If you have content platforms that continually update, such as a blog or a podcast, you can use the RSS trigger. And this is an application within Zapier. So for example, we can choose the app event at the trigger portal by clicking RSS. We're going to choose a trigger event. And we can choose the trigger event to be that there's going to be a new item in the feed or new items in multiple feeds. And for the sake of simplicity, we're going to choose one new item in a feed. We're then going to click Continue. What we then need is going to be the feed URL. We can update this feed URL with a podcast URL or a blog URL. So for the sake of simplicity, we are going to use a blog URL. Now in this case, there is no username required to access the feed. And you'll notice here that there's only one required field for this particular application to work, and that's going to be the feed URL. Once you get to this stage, what you're going to need to do is click the Refresh Fields URL. You're then going to need to click Refresh Fields. That will give you the Continue button, and you'll then click Continue. You're going to need to test your trigger. This test will allow you to know that your connection is valid. You can then click Continue. And what you're now saying is that whenever there is a new item in your blog, you can then set off some kind of chain reaction within Zapier. So for example, we can use something like GoToWebinar, and we can create a new webinar whenever there is a new post on our site. Now the required information are the title, the start time and the end time, and the webinar type. You're then going to have a start time and end time. You're then going to choose the webinar type. You're then going to click Continue. You are then going to test your connection. And what we can now do is we can check GoToWebinar to see that our test webinar has been set up. And our new webinar is available inside of GoToWebinar just as we set it up. Now before closing out this video, it's important to note that the formatting for the start time and the end time had to be changed in order to make the Zap actually work. And there is a formatting chart available here in this area. You do have to click it in order to access it so that you can make sure that your time is going to be correctly stated. Welcome back. Now there is a Zapier application that just works with plain email. For example, if we were to click Create a Zap and we come into our Zap creation screen, you'll come into the trigger portal and you'll be able to write into your app event search that you are looking for email from Zapier, or in some cases it'll be on the panel. Going to click on Email by Zapier. You're going to then look for a specific trigger event. And you'll notice then that the trigger event can be an inbound email or a new read receipt. Now you'll notice that the trigger happens when an email will be forwarded to a custom zapiermail.com email address. So we're going to now click on New Inbound Email. We're then going to click Continue. We're then going to give this email address a specific name. We're going to copy the address. We're then going to click Continue. We're then going to test the trigger. Now, we typically will not be able to find a request when we start the process. So what we're now going to do is we're going to send an email to the address. We are now going to send the email. We're now going to come back and test the trigger. And when we come back after the test, we now see a request. We can now click Continue. What we can now do is to set a specific action within Zapier, and we can have that action to be whatever we want it to be. For example, we can use Zoom. And what we can do is we can create a meeting. We can then click Continue. We can choose our Zoom account. We can then set up the meeting. Now in this case, we're going to choose a custom email, and we're going to choose it based on the subject of the email. We're then going to choose the topic. We can then choose it based on the body. We can then choose the when of the email. And typically what we're going to do is we're going to be able to use the specific format. And what we'll do is we will map the rest of the information. We're then going to click Continue. We can then test our setup. Our test is successful, so we can now check Zoom to make sure our meeting is now set up. We can now see that our Zoom event has been set up. So you can use an inbound email in order to set any action that you determine you want to set up within Zapier. Welcome back. Now Zapier will allow you to trigger a set of events based on a specific schedule. To do that, you're going to start with your trigger, and you're going to set it as the schedule. You are then going to set a trigger event. You can set that trigger event at a specific time interval. So for example, we can do it so that it happens every week. We can then click Continue. We can then choose the specific day of the week. We can then choose a specific time of day. We can then click Continue. What we can do is we can then test our trigger. We can then click Continue. We can then set a specific action. And for the sake of this video, we're going to create a Zoom event. So every week we're going to then create a specific event. We are going to create a specific meeting. We're going to choose our meeting type. We're going to choose a specific topic. We are going to choose the when the meeting is going to happen. We're going to make sure to use the formatting as given to us by Zapier. We're then going to choose a time zone. Now the password we said is going to be optional, so we're going to leave it out. We're going to write in a specific duration. And we're then going to click Continue. We are then going to test and continue our action. And our meeting has now been sent to Zoom. And so what we have now done is that we have set so that every week on a specific day we are going to have a meeting created within Zoom. Welcome back. Now in some cases you can use two Zapier applications within the same Zap. So assuming that we are using the new inbound trigger and we're using an inbound email as that trigger, we can then set an outbound email using the same kind of Zapier action. So in this case, we're going to use email by Zapier. And what we're going to do is we're now going to send an outbound email. We're then going to click Continue. We are now going to set up an email. We're going to give the email a subject. We are going to write in the body for the email. Now if there is an attachment, we can make it so that it can be part of the email in most cases. But this is not a required field, nor is the from name a required field. Basically, we have filled in all of the required fields, and everything else that we'll be filling in will be based on the scenario that we set up. Now what we're saying is that when a new inbound email comes, that an email will be sent to a specific individual with a specific subject and a specific body. Now in this case, we are going to attach the body of the email. And what we're now going to do is click Continue. And we are going to test the email. And the outbound email is now sent. And the email has now been sent. Welcome back. One of the more interesting triggers that you can set up within Zapier is based on the weather. So for example, what we can do is we can click Create a Zap. and we'll get to the trigger portal. We'll look for an app event, and we're going to search for weather. And we're going to click on Weather by Zapier. We're going to choose a specific event. The triggers within Zapier can be, will it rain today? Or what is today's forecast? We are going to make it so that, will it rain today? We're then going to click Continue. We'll need to give the specific area for the weather. And so we're going to get a specific longitude and latitude. Now, as of the recording of this video, Zapier does give you a URL where you can go to find a specific latitude and longitude. You are then going to type in a specific location. You will then have a latitude and longitude. Now, you'll notice then that you'll have units or Fahrenheit, but that's not going to be relevant with this particular question. So we're going to click Continue. We're going to test our trigger. We are then going to click Continue. We are now going to send an outbound email based on the weather report. So we are going to set up our action, and we're going to send an outbound email. We're then going to click Continue. We're going to write the email to a specific individual, or at least 5 individuals that we can set up ahead of time. We are then going to enter into the body. We can then enter the summary, and we can also enter the precipitation possibility and the maximum temperature. We have filled in all of the requirements. We can then click Continue. We can then test and continue our email. And our email has now been sent. And we can now see the email in our box. Welcome back. Now you can create zaps using your own website as either the trigger or the action. If we were to go and click Create a Zap, what you will see here is that you can look to different applications. And we are going to choose WordPress. And we now have WordPress available. And the potential triggers can be a new post, new media, new user, new comment, or an updated post. But for the sake of example, we are going to use a new post. We're then going to click Continue. We're going to choose a specific WordPress account, and we can do that by signing into our WordPress account. Now, in order to undertake this, what we need to do is to put in our base URL, our username, and our password for our WordPress website. Now, if you've not added the Zapier WordPress plugin to your website, you'll need to add it before Zapier will take to your website connection. So we are going to go to our WordPress website, and we are going to add a new plugin. And we are going to see the Zapier plugin. We're then going to click Install Now. We are then going to activate the plugin. We're now going to go back through the sign up process. And we're going to re-enter the information. And we're then going to click Yes, Continue. And your account will then be connected. You'll then choose the post status. And you can state that you want the post to be published. You can then click Continue. You then want to test your trigger. Zapier will find the post. You can then click Continue. You can then set the action. What you can do is you can then set any kind of action that you want. For the sake of this video, we are going to have an email that is sent. So we are going to choose an outbound email. We're then going to click Continue. We're then going to write in the person receiving, the subject, and then the body. Once you've done that, you can then click Continue. And your action is now set up. You can test your post. So basically, you can set up any trigger with WordPress with an accompanying action of your choice. Welcome back. Now, your WordPress site can also be an action on the end of a trigger. For example, if we were to go to App Event and we were to type in Twitter, and assuming that your Twitter account is connected to your Zapier account, you can select a trigger event. We can make it so that our tweet is the trigger event. We're then going to click Continue. We're then going to choose our account. We have already connected our Twitter account. If you had not, you would need to click Connect to a new Twitter account. We are going to use the Twitter account that is connected. We're then going to click Continue. We're then going to test our trigger. We're then going to click Continue. We can now set the action within our WordPress website. So we're going to search for the action to be our WordPress website. And we're going to select WordPress. We're then going to click an action event. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a specific post. We're then going to click continue. We're then going to choose our WordPress account, which we have already set up. We're then going to click continue. We are then going to set up the action. We're then going to create a specific post. We're then going to write in the title, and we can use some of the information from our tweet. However, in this case, we're going to write in a specific title. We're then going to select the content, and we're going to use the text from our tweet. We are also going to use the URL of the tweet. We can write in an excerpt. However, we are going to leave that blank since it is not going to be required. We're also not going to write in the required password. We are going to choose an author. And we're going to choose all of the other information as we see fit. We can also use a specific post publish date. What we're going to do now is we're going to click continue. We are now going to test our post. And our post has now been sent to our WordPress website. And you can see now that our post has been sent. In fact, what we can do is we can change this from password protected to public. And we can then publish our post. And our post is now set. Okay, so with that, thanks, and I'll see you either in another video or in another course.